Namaskaram, everybody. I think we have been recorded. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Very good. Very good. Okay, then we will start the class. We'll continue with the Kena Upaniṣad. See, if you have regular classes, what happens is you won't forget and it'll be in a sequence. Once you do once in 15 days, there's a little bit of awkward timing, but due to everybody is busy, so we are not able to do it right. So let's see how we continue. I will start with Kena Upaniṣad. One second. I should be able to display a minute. Share. One thing is, hold on a second. Are you able to see the PowerPoint? I'm not able to see the PowerPoint. I don't know what happened. Hold on a second.
I am able to see, but some of the slides seem to be similar to the last lecture.
Just a second. I know. Hold on a second. I don't know why I'm sharing it and I'm not able to see. Oh, now it's okay. It is. I purposefully put the 10 slides to remind people. Okay, I will. It should be okay. Don't worry. I'm just going to simply state what we did earlier extremely fast so that you just within 5 minutes will know where we are, just to bring everybody on the same page. So what we tried to do is we started talking about Sataṅgar's view from the introduction to Īśāvāsya Upanishad book. So if you have that book, which I have shared, you should study the introduction area of that introduction, and also the I have some news for you. I'll be doing it in a slightly different way than I even thought. So without understanding this fundamental his analysis, what we're trying to do is Kena Upaniṣad, but we still need his analysis to get why he's talking what he thinks, why is he thinking in a different way? Why is this difficulty? We already talked about it. Śaṅkarācārya has declared a very powerful worldview in philosophy, and he's probably taken over the Vedanta world with his viewpoints. So to counter that, we need to understand a different ideology. Okay. Now, with this, the other thing, which this is a new slide, by the way. This was not presented to you earlier, but I will, one second. See, the guiding thought about Sataṅgar's view is Gita should be taken as a guide. And Gita should be interpreted without imposing any personal view on it. And we'll see. And this is in almost, this thought is very similar to Ramanuja.org's thought, or even Madhvacharya's thought, or something like that. They let us, since we are doing Ramanuja.org's view here, or Vishishtadvaita view, in a way, we'll take that. my grandfather Sataṅgar is borrowing this thought from Ramanuja.org. And he also believes Shatagopa or Nammalvar had the same view that in the Narayana Dvipam in Tiruvaizhumoyi, he clearly says, I think some Kandan Tavaneri Katum Vai or something like that. I don't remember the exact verse or the Pashuram. He says we have to follow what Lord Krishna has said in the Bhagavad Gītā. So another thing I found out was we should understand the Bhagavad Gīta's, the yogic path given in the Bhagavad Gītā. You cannot go into everything in Bhagavad Gītā, but at least the yogic stage in the Bhagavad Gītā. Then, without understanding Ishavasya, that is the first of the 10 Upanishads, understanding Kena or other Upanishads becomes difficult. And this, I'm seeing it harder and harder because my grandfather uses that strategy to analyze and understand Upanishads. So we may have to go deeper into understanding Ishavasya, at least the structure of it, thought process behind it, quite eventually. That is, within the next few classes, we have to cover the entire Ishavasya Upanishad based on certain ideologies. Okay. So you can look at the summary of or the introduction to the content of Sataṅgar's work on Ishavasya Upanishad. That's what it is. This I'm going to rush through. You already know we talked about these concepts for a long time, and we talked about how there is another view. This view is very important because this is a yogic view. Paramātman being the Antaratma, jīvātman, then all the different layers and things like that. This is a yogic view. And then we talked about Dharma Bhuta Jnana, Jnana Swarupa. We talked about Buddhi and how Buddhi gets tainted by the gunas of the Prakriti. Then we talked about, several questions Sataṅgar asked in his introduction. Who is this I? What does this Dharma Bhuta Jnana mean? What is, why is I different from matter? So many questions he asked, right? These questions we went through in depth last time. So here we stopped. In the lastly, he says, is regaining the last status of I, the summum bonum? If so, is it not subject to bondage once again? That is coming back to bondage. So if we get moksha, what makes sure that it doesn't come back to, again, this bondage? So this is where we stopped in the last class. So far, everything is clear for you? You know where we are? You remember, right?
Yes, it's clear.
Yes. Now, I'm just showing you a picture of how Mount Everest is given in the books, and how people try to go up the Mount Everest, and there are so many paths to it, like coming from here, coming from there, and things like that. Even at a physical level, if this is the goal, Mount Everest is the goal, you need to understand where you are, how do you get there, and what is it. So we need to know three things, right? The goal, where am I, who am I, where am I, and how do I get there? These three aspects known as Tattva Hita Purushartha in the Upanishads or in philosophy, right? Navigation in the physical world itself is very difficult, even though concrete things are there, these are objects. But when it comes to invisible jīvātman, mind, intellect, Paramātman, and all, these becomes even more difficult in philosophy, right? In our philosophical life. And the terms themselves are more complicated. What is aparoksha? Apperceptiveness. That means what? Direct, immediate knowing of yourself without the use of senses or mind. Senses or mind need not come in between. Without even using your senses like mind and the senses, you know yourself. That is the direct understanding of who you are. That is known as aparoksha. So these kind of terms come in. Now we'll go into fundamental, uh, ordinary discussion on what is this consciousness, what is reason, and what is absolute. Let's try to understand these three things. This is explained by Sataṅgar in his introduction. I'm just breaking it into simply understandable points to discuss. So in every day, when we look at, we know that we exist as separate. This is fundamental to all of us. We all know, oh, I am there, I woke up, I want to go here. You could even go say, I know I'm going to the temple and things like that. I'm going here. I was so happy going to the temple today. You can have any kind of experience. But at the end of the day, what remains is there is an I, and we experience the world around us. Then comes the reason. So we can reason out things. But when reason you apply to the external world, you can solve a lot of problems using reason. By using reason, you can probably take a vehicle and go to moon and come back. Right? So many things you can achieve using just reason. But when you want to, when you have to, or when you think, you can use a reason to understand yourself. Where am I? Who am I? What is this relationship of I to everything? All these things, reason seems to hit a wall and it cannot understand the I. But reason can give you one thing. Look, we are all here, we are born, we go through, birth, old age, all these states. And somehow we feel that this doesn't seem to be our final state. You're constantly looking for some improvement. But even this reason can reason out and say, well, you are having, imaginary dreams. We know everything. So reason can give you wrong information about yourself, wrong information about your true goal, path, and life. So obviously, if there is nothing beyond reason, then there's no need to look for God or consciousness or anything, because there's nothing. But constantly, many acharyas, seers, yogis, and even people who are not even yogis have distinct understanding that there is something beyond reason. And that they call intuition or yoga. We can just roughly say intuition or yoga is same in here. So this intuition operates through three levels. These are the fundamental last three levels given in the Aṣṭāṅga Yoga of Patanjali, Yoga Sutras also. In the last three levels, what they say? Concentration, meditation, and absorption. So if you concentrate on some object, meditate on it, and get absorbed into it, you can have truth, you can understand truth which is distinct, which is repeatable. You can go to that state repeatedly and understand something beyond what your reason and ordinary knowledge gives you. So these are the three steps given in yoga. So you can go beyond the reason and understand something, right? Now, many people have done yoga. Many acharyas, yogis, swamis, so many of them you can find. They say, look, I do yoga, I do meditation. They say that. And these, that is not easy though. It will take years of perfection and guidance and some obviously help from above. But many of the seers have found that the consciousness of I and the consciousness and the He, the divine, dissolves at the high state, at the highest stage. So what happens in yoga? The person goes into meditation, then the person starts getting the feeling of who I am, and then he goes beyond, and then obviously we have to agree about a He or the God or the Creator, because you see things around us, the universe, the huge, immense universe, so large, with so many galaxies and black holes, there's so many cosmic entities, we don't even know how many they are. So knowing all this universe, then yeah, there is a universe and there is a creator, there has to be a creator. So you always look for the creator, he. And somewhat many sages and acharyas, they've come out and say there is no difference between the I and the he. I seem to merge into the he. And I goes away, and what I can realize is only the he, the majestic, transcending, and only one. And that one is beyond the usual division of knower, known, knowledge. We have this triputi, right? That is, I'm the knower, there's something to be known, the object, and I know through my knowledge. So the means of knowing these three divisions are always fundamental in our thought. But these yogis seem to go into a stage and say, in that stage, I don't see a difference between I, objects, or that one. So this is, you ask many yogis, a lot of people come back and say, this is what it is. And they also come to know that this he, that is the absolute, that which dissolves all multiplicity, that is the absolute state. They say that there is nothing beyond it. But that absolute state, the absolute thing, appears both as the Lord of the universe and also beyond everything, transcendent. So from obverse means two sides of this coin. The coin is like that, right? The coin is facing himself, that is absolute. That means there are beyond all distinctions. It's when that absolute looks at us, the creation and the universe and all, everybody within it, that portion is known as the God. That means that same absolute is managing this universe, interacting with us, creating this universe, maintaining, things are happening. You don't have to worry. The sun will rise tomorrow, right? You don't have to do anything. Everybody will start working. See, there's an energy, there's everything being done by somebody else. So that is the universal Lord, he. But the other side of the coin is the absolute, no, unrelated to the universe. It is beyond all distinctions. So what is the paradox? Those who return from this intuitive experience to normal consciousness, so many people come out and say, well, I was in Samādhi. Samādhi has become a fashion word now, right? Well, everybody says he was in Samādhi. Nobody is trying to understand there are how many levels of Samādhi are there. There are people who go into a state where they clearly, even doctors have measured their pulse, the pulse goes to pretty much zero. The breathing almost stops completely or undetectable. Maybe it's happening extremely slowly, but people cannot detect. And then they go, the body becomes like wood, a wood, log, kashta. And they can come back to ordinary life. So some people say, oh, I've got to Samādhi. Some people, they don't know where they are exactly, right? So you have too many people talking about Samādhi, but not everybody knows the higher state. But many people will come and say, I have to gone to the higher state. Let's assume somebody has gone to the higher state. Then they come back to normal consciousness. When they come back to normal consciousness, well, they're regularly, they're the same old people. You can connect with them, talk to them. They will remember their relatives, friends, and they will do a lot of things, right? So the people think that when they come back, they come to their normal consciousness, right? And the I consciousness, which is different from matter. So they know that they can differentiate themselves and matter and everything around. around them. The I consciousness is directly aware of themselves rather than intellectual. Intellectual means after reasoning out and you figure out and say this word, oh, this is a concept I understand. I understand the concept of Pythagoras theorem or something like that. That's all intellectual. That which does not need any buddhi or intellect, does not need any mind or senses, it is self itself. That is self-awareness. And these yogis who come back, they come to their own self-awareness. So, final understanding, even when the I seems submerged in the majesty of the He, suppose they go to dhyana, they go to Samādhi, and I seems to be submerged in that Brahman or whatever, right? If you reason out, it's not completely integrated with the absolute, right? People think that, oh, I was in Samādhi and I did not know anything about myself or objects or anything like that. I was beyond the Triputi, that is known, knower, and a means of knowing. I was one with Brahman. Well, okay, you were one with Brahman. Why did you come back and let us know? Because most of them who says they are one with Brahman, they'll come back. Because they come back, we know that the integration into Brahman is not absolute. They are not completely integrated into absolute. They don't have other knowledge, external knowledge, right? So the individual perceptiveness around them, like looking at other objects or something like that might be lost. And only their own I remains as an eternal integral part of the absolute. So it has to be, there is an absolute, and this I still remains as I, but the I does not have the external knowledge of the world or universe, but I is still self-aware, apperceptive, and it is still part of the integral part of the absolute, right? This is what we should understand. That is what my grandfather is trying to say. So, how do we understand the relation between I, he, and the absolute? Okay, but by the way, how many people have already slept off? How many people are snoring?
No, we are awake.
Are you following what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. So the limits of Samādhi, that is merging of the I in Samādhi, that is deep meditation, does not prove that the Samādhi is absolute experience. So many people come and say, oh, there was no difference. I could not perceive myself. I went out of the body. I could not perceive my body. I could not perceive this universe. I was one with the absolute. They say that. But that is not an absolute experience, because evidence. Why is it? If Samādhi were truly absolute, one would not return to normal life with all its complexity and paraphernalia. But people seem to return, right? You see people coming back from Samādhi. That means in Samādhi, they were not one. If they were integrated one in Samādhi, they could never have come out. They're gone. That is why this is a very unique thought process Sampathanga uses to evaluate whether people are really talking about Samādhi properly or not. By the way, my grandfather was an experimental person. He went and talked to several yogis, and he in fact spent a few days with Ramana Maharshi. So he was not only a thinker, he was practically would go interview yogis and things like that. He himself was practicing yoga.
Can I ask a doubt here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when there are people who are in Samādhi and come out, but they will never tell us that they were in Samadhi. Is it possible?
Possible,
There are people.
definitely.
Huh?
Yeah, definitely. See, I'm 1 second, hold on, just hold on. Your volume, I cannot hear you very well. Maybe I'm set it up in a different way. Let's see. Yeah, see, what you're saying is they will never say that they are in Samadhi, but they will be talking, walking, and things like that, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, they call it as Sahaja Samadhi, and some people say that they are experiencing that. Okay, and I have talked to some of them actually, by the way, and they say that I am in Sahaja Samadhi, and one problem with it is, how do you know that it is true? How do you know that that person who is talking has Sahaja Samadhi, right? There's a lot of testing one could do, throw a stone at that person and see how the person reacts. And then he might say, I'm reacting because my body is reacting, my mind is reacting, but I am not reacting. I am still in Samadhi. So he can say that. So you don't understand what is true, what is not true.
But the person in Samadhi doesn't care what.
What did you say?
The person in Samadhi does not care what the other outer world thinks of him. So why should he bother in explaining him?
Exactly. It doesn't have to explain. But, see, many things can be true. But one thing is, why am I giving you a small, general idea, right? That don't get fooled is a question I'm saying. There may be a lot of people. We hear about it, I don't want to name them. There are like hundreds and hundreds of examples in India and abroad that people fool people and they're divine or something like that, and then people fall for it, and then they even so-called intelligent politicians and everybody else, actors, politicians, scientists, everybody fall for them and lose a lot of their lives and money. So you got to be careful, but there may be definitely truly powerful yogis, no question about that. Okay, that's not the point I'm trying to make here. The point I'm trying to make here is, so reason and intuition cannot understand he. So if somebody has really a realization of God, he, it is definitely through some beyond the reason and intuition. Ordinary reason and intuition cannot get Brahman properly. So the Sataṅgar is going somewhere with this. He has some other ideology here. Let's understand what he's trying to think. The absence of relative consciousness, that is, relative consciousness is, I'm seeing this world, I'm interacting with the world, I'm listening to the news, I'm watching everything like that. That's all relative consciousness. So that is not absolute. If it were absolute, they cannot come back to this relative consciousness. So if just losing relative consciousness is not absolute, apperception is not absolute, self-awareness is not absolute. That's what he's saying. Both I and he have two forms of awareness. That is, now he's bringing the idea of the Vishishtadvaita theory, right? And is that just a theory? No. He's saying, we have analyzed what our great acharyas, the Vishishtadvaita yogis, the alvars, have told us. Experienced people, the alvars, Nammalvar, and other people have told us what it is. So, in their experience of yoga, both I and he seem to have two forms of awareness. That means Brahman or Ishvara is also, Narayana is aware. You are aware. Both have different forms of awareness. Both are directly self-aware, both are apperceptive, right? So even Ishvara can can know through Dharmabhuta Jnana. You or anybody can also know through Dharmabhuta Jnana. And we also have self-awareness, Swarupa Jnana. Ishvara also has Swarupa Jnana, that is, he is self-aware. Both are perceptive. So Paramatma can be aware of, he is always aware of all things, and you are also aware of things around you. What is the difference in perception? In Samādhi, our or human beings' consciousness, awareness becomes inactive. It doesn't relate to the external world. External world becomes zeroed out. In this state, it does not mean that God's perception goes away too. He is aware. This is where he is making a distinction. And then he is taking, in fact, this is a summary sigma, right? Sigma of all the experiences of so many great seers given in the Bhagavata, in the Vishnu Purana, in the Shastras of different kind, Mahabharata, it could be anywhere, Itihasas. They connected everything and said that there is this kind of experience too, where Paramatma is active. You may not be active and you may not understand anything. You may be dissolved in a way, but he is active. So nature of awareness in human beings, awareness requires perception to be functioning, right? Only you're aware of self when you're looking at something and think that, oh, I am looking, I am seeing, I am sipping some drink, right? So when your perception about the external world, if it is operative, your self-awareness is very easily understandable. But in God, self-awareness and perception of others are infinitely coextensive. He is aware of himself, he is omnipresent and aware of himself, and he is also aware of everything around. So God is eternally omniscient. Eternal distinction. Both I and he are spiritual entities, Atmans. They remain distinct. He is different from I, according to many seers. So many yogis come out and say, he is separate, I am separate, and I can see that person. Two competing views, right? One view is non-triunity, that is complete dissolution of the knower, known, and means of knowing. No distinctions. There is nothing, no distinction. Everything collapses into one. That is one view. The other view is eternal cosmic consciousness. That means maintaining certain distinctions. External object world may disappear, but knowing Paramatma as separate, knowing yourself and other jīvātmas as separate, this state may continue. Which of them is superior or truly absolute? This is the fundamental question, right? The Advaitins can say, well, whoever are in the situation where they seem to experience the superior Narayana or Krishna, someone, and themselves, including other devatas as separate and jīvātmas as separate, if they are looking at multiplicity, if they are looking at plurality, they are in a lower state, according to Advaita. Only when all distinctions, Bheda, goes away completely, that is the highest state. That is the view of Advaitins. And the competing is, no, you may lose the consciousness of external world. and you may still retain knowledge of yourself. You may still retain that there is a different Paramātma who is the real creator, sustainer, and to whom everything goes and dissolves into during Pralaya. You may be able to watch. Even the Markandeya, a rishi called Markandeya, has anybody, does anybody know about how he had an experience? Where does this come up? Markandeya, episode. Anybody? Everybody is in deep sleep now, or in Samādhi.
Maybe Samādhi.
What did you say? I have a chat here, but what does the chat say? Asking immortality from Shiva. Yes, he did that. Markandeya meditated on Shiva and asked immortality. So Markandeya episode comes up in Srimad Bhagavatam also. Okay. And he says, I want to see what happens in the Pralaya. And so what it is Markandeya gets the divine realization that in Pralaya everything goes away. Everything goes away. But there seemed to be one leaf. On the banyan leaf, Krishna is lying down as a little kid. And he sees everything being devoured by Krishna. The whole universe is inside Krishna. And he realizes that. Markandeya realizes that. So some of these rishis realize that there is a different creator and all the creation is different. And which of these two views are superior? The one which says that the final has to be no distinctions whatsoever, or the final is not that. There's still eternal consciousness. So these two are parallel thoughts. These two are competing viewpoints in Vedanta. I'm sure you're all aware of this, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what Sataṅgar is saying, don't make hasty conclusions. If you make judgments based on inadequate premises, that becomes a logical error. Final authority, see, beyond our experiences like our yoga, our yogic experience, and our analysis of textbooks, our manana, our contemplation of so many information we process, right? All these things are one level. Vedas are there too. One should look at Vedas and we have to understand, what do the Vedas really say? What do the Śāstras say? That is the final authority. We have to really believe in that. Some followers of Śaṅkarācārya argue that he and I are identical and the disappearance of I in Samādhi leads to the absolute, and this experiential evidence carries more weight than the Vedas. Do you understand this argument? See, our experience is final. Many people have this experience of Samādhi where he, I, everything will become one. And when I have this experiential, direct experience, why would I need scriptural authority? Why would I want to even evaluate scriptural authority? So this is
On the other hand,
what did you say?
on the other hand, isn't it the reverse? Because according to Advaita, scriptures are useful only when it is talking about Advaita, right? They actually bank on Śāstra itself for claiming Advaita.
True. They bank on what do you call scriptural statements too, right? But what kind of scriptural, so that is where Advaita Acharyas categorize scriptural statements into two categories, right? What are they? Two categories. Anybody? What kind of categories? Two categories are there in scriptures.
Are you trying to Gnana Kanda and Karma Kanda?
Not
Is it
like
that?
that. Not like that. What it is even in Jnana Kanda, there is the ultimate sentences, right? The ultimate sentences are Mahavakyas. Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, Ayam Atma Brahma, Prajnanam Brahma, Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. These kind of statements which says that everything is one, they are superior. They are the ultimate. The rest of the, what you call, so many Upanishadic statements, it can be Bhokta, Bhogyam, Preritaram, Chamatva, Sarvam Proktam, Trividam, Brahmametat, all these kind of statements which indicate multiplicity, indicate eternality of multiple things. All these things are at a lower level of reality. They are not ultimate. So they distinguish priority. They give priority to only Mahavakyas, that which shows Shuddha Brahma, Nirguna, Nirakara, Nirvikalpa, Shuddha Brahma, right? And beyond all, one, that oneness. If the when the statements talk about the oneness, those statements are given higher priority. Those statements which are Bheda Pratipadaka, they talk about Bheda or multiplicity. They are lower level. Do you understand? So even Advaiti's claim, scripture is ultimate. But what kind of scripture? Specific statements in the scripture are more ultimate than the other statements which are only preparatory or supporting or something like that. Right? Got it.
Yes. And this need not be experimental also. It could just be logical, because
Good,
this is teaching something different in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. See, the thing is, I know where you're heading. What you're saying, why don't even the Advaitins can also just go back and say the final authority are Vedas only, not experience, right? But you have to understand the logic of Śaṅkarācārya using Śaṅkarācārya's own statements, right? See, many ordinary philosophy, hobby people, right? Ordinary people who will go, oh, some Ananda is speaking, they will just go sit down and learn. Somebody is speaking, some Krishna Kashyap is speaking, oh, let us sit down and learn. See, ordinary people will just go learn under anybody, right? Those people may or may not directly get the messages from the Acharyas. See, many people I have seen, they just give, my view of non-dualism. They don't quote from where they are picking it up. I am already experienced guy, and I know what non-dualism is. I don't have to even quote Śaṅkarācārya or any verse or Vedas or something. I just experience and I talk to people. I don't need any Śāstra. There are people like that, right? What we are doing here is, there can be thousands of people like that who don't want to mention any original Shastra verse or statement of other Śaṅkarācārya or some other Acharya. They don't mention anything. They say that I have already attained the state. If you want to follow, follow me. That's it, right? And so Well, such people exist too. But in our class, what we do is we look at the classical literature. We want to take the views of the classical founding members, founding pioneering teachers like Śaṅkarācārya, Madhvacārya, Ramanuja.org, and only go with that. If you, that is a separate strategy the other people use. So if you want to just understand their view, we have to go and get the statements out of their own works, right? In Śaṅkarācārya's statements, what is the true view of Śaṅkarācārya regarding scriptures? Is scripture more valid than experience, Anubhava? Or is Anubhava more valid than experience? What is the real view of Śaṅkarācārya? You have to determine, right? It's not that you and me having different views. There may be several Swamijis, Anandas, and everybody. Matajis, it doesn't matter. They may have different view, but we have to figure out what Śaṅkarācārya's view is. That's what we are studying. We are university kind of people, right? We are studying, academic. Śaṅkarācārya says, Śaṅkarācārya on Brahma Sutra 112. So you can go check out these, right? It is not, we are not just casually commenting. See what I told you about these two jokes, right? Anyaya Vedanta, Nirmula Vyakhyana. These two should be avoided. Anyaya Vedanta means Vedanta should be studied only after studying Nyaya Śāstra or referring to Nyaya Śāstra. Nirmula Vyakhyana means you don't quote from which original you are talking. From which original sentence, maybe a sentence from Buddhism, sentence from Nagarjuna, sentence from Śaṅkarācārya, it doesn't matter. You never quote the original. You say it as if it is your own idea. That is wrong. That's not good actually. But there are some yogis who are really realized they don't need to use any text or anything. I experience, I tell you. There is nothing wrong with it. But in an ordinary sense, in an ordinary dialogue, we have to have, if we are not at the yogi level, at the highest level, we should always say, oh, this is what this Acharya said. So that is better, actually. So Śaṅkarācārya is saying, na dharma jignāsāyām iva shrutyādaya eva pramanam brahma jignāsāyām kintu shrutadehe anubhavasya cha upapattibhyah brahmana pramanam. What he's saying is, unlike in the case of dharma, dharma means there are dharma, only scriptures are pramana. Vedas and dharma shastras, like Manu Dharma Shastra or some other shastra, Yajnavalkya Dharma Shastra, it could be any dharma shastra. These are the authority. Suppose somebody wants to determine when should we do Sandhya Vandana routine every day. Aharaha Sandhyam Kurvita, he says. Though you go into scriptures, he says, dawn and dusk, and in midday you have to do Sandhya Vandana duties, prayers. So when you want to look at dharma, you will have to figure out the scriptures. They are the only authority. You cannot go and say, I can do whatever I want to do. So you have to go through the dharma texts. But when it comes to knowing Brahman, the ultimate reality, we don't rely on scripture alone. That's what he's saying. Anubhavasya cha upapattibhyaha brahmanaha pramanam. So you have to count your experience, add logic around the experience, justifications of the experience to know Brahman, not just the scripture. This is the view of Śaṅkarācārya. Not only that, he continued. So, in the pursuit of Brahmajnana, we use Shruti, Anubhava, Upapatti. The same sentence I'm explaining here. Shruti is scripture. Anubhava is direct inner experience. And Upapatti is rational thinking or philosophical reasoning. All together as valid means of knowledge. So, what is the same thing? Sorry. Shrutadeha Anubhava Upapatibhya Brahmanaha. So thing is, Shrutadeha, that is the hearing from Shastras, Anubhava and justifications. Upapatti is rational thinking, right? Philosophical reasoning. So all together are valid means of knowledge. Further, what happens further? Śaṅkarācārya says on Brahma Sutra 114, Tattu Samanmayat. In that he says, Avidya nivritti bheda paratvat shastrasya nahi shastram idantaya vishaya bhutam brahma pratipadayati. He says, Scripture does not present Brahman as an object like this thing. Okay, if you look at something and say, oh, this is the mouse, this thing, you can look at the object and say, okay, this is it. This is not the way Scripture shows Brahman. Shastra involves Veda. Shastra itself involves Veda. It has got sentences, words, thinker, audience, kind of thing. The role of Shastra is to remove the ignorance of duality. Right? It cannot show any Brahman. It doesn't show or describe Brahman. It shows only how to deny this universe and guide you to direct realization of non-duality, to remove the ignorance of this universe, this duality, multiplicity and everything like that. And that will automatically guide you for you to become Brahman directly. That's what Śaṅkarācārya is saying in the Tattu Samanmayat explanation of the Brahma Sutra 114. Then he says, Brahma Sutra 1111, Śaṅkarācārya says, Shrutyartha vipratipattau cha arthabhasa nirakaranena samyagartha nirdharanam tarkenaiva mukhya-vṛtti nirupana mukhena kriyate. So what he says, when the sacred texts seem to contradict each other, there may be some statements in the Shrutis which contradict other statements in the Shrutis. Then what we should do? Use logical reasoning to identify and reject incorrect interpretation. That's step one. Step two, pay special attention to teachings that appear multiple times in different contexts. Tarkenaiva mukhya-vṛtti nirupana mukhena kriyate. Arthabhasa nirakaranena samyagartha nirdharanam. Arthabhasa nirakarana means to deny or to reject inappropriate meanings, to determine the right meaning. Tarkenaiva, logic. Mukhya-vṛtti nirupana mukhena, looking at different vakyas. Where are the vakyas, different vakyas given? So analyze it, and then only you can find out the contradictions between two different scriptural sentences. Through this process, discover the true consistent meaning of scripture. This reflects Śaṅkarācārya's method of using both reason and textual analysis to resolve apparent contradictions in the Upanishads and establish his non-dual Advaitic interpretation. So he himself has said how he is going to do it, right? How he is doing it. Shankara Bhashya, on the third chapter of Brahma Sutra, 1.222, that is 3.1.22, this Shruti asambhavecha lakṣaṇāśrayam nyāyameva. What it means is, say, if taking a scriptural statement literally leads to an impossibility or contradiction, right? I have to find you a example of this. Only when you go into details of 3.1.22, he will give details, right? He will give details of what kind of shrutis are there, the meaning of the shrutis becomes impossible to understand, and that leads to an impossibility or a contradiction. Then It's completely reasonable and correct to interpret the passage figuratively. So lakṣaṇā means figurative. Just like saying, Richard fought in the battle. In the battle, Richard was a lion in the battlefield. We say, right? That means Richard is not really a lion, but he fought bravely, powerfully in the battlefield. So that is a lakṣaṇā view. So when interpretations is difficult, you can do figurative understanding of the statement. This is a valid method of scriptural interpretation. So scriptures can be interpreted through figurative understanding. This is what he says in 3.1.22. Let's go further. Shankara Bhashya on the 4.3.14. Nahi asatyapi sambhave. This is same Brahma Sutra. Nahi asatyapi sambhave mukhya-vṛtti arthasya grahanam iti kaschit ajñāpayita vartate. Śaṅkarācārya is saying, we are not bound to always interpret text literally. No authority requires us to stick with the primary meaning in all cases. We don't have to accept the primary meaning and take literal meanings. We have the freedom to adopt secondary, non-literal interpretations when appropriate. Right? This reflects Śaṅkarācārya's flexible approach to textual interpretation, allowing for metaphorical or secondary meanings when the context or philosophical consistency requires it. So if the metaphorical or secondary or figurative meaning becomes more important than the textual direct literature which is written there. Look at this. This is a very interesting approach. Secondary meaning or figurative meaning becomes more important than the words itself. When? We're not bound. In some cases, we could. So now let's take this a little bit. Let's try to understand some fundamentals. What is this? Already 8:20 a.m. This is just about one thing. This will go into detail. From here, we will continue tomorrow. Okay, so we'll stop here and continue tomorrow. This is 8:20, roughly this 1 hour we have finished. Because this goes into some details, I want to have focus of everybody's focus. Any questions? Is this useful?
Yes, it is useful. How does Shankara talk about Śāstra Yonitvat then?
That we have to. I can Śāstra Yonitvat, right? Yeah, I will talk to you about it. It's a very important verse. By the way, Śāstra Yonitvat is very fundamental. In fact, there is quite a difference between Śaṅkarācārya's view of Śāstra Yonitvat and the Ramanuja.org or Madhvacharya view of Śāstra Yonitvat. There are 2, 3. This is fundamentally, I will try to summarize it to you if I find something very quick tomorrow. Okay, I'll study about it and then tell you how we can simply give you some information about Śāstra Yonitvat by tomorrow. Okay. Any other question?
We understood mostly very clear it was.
Quite clear. Okay, very good. One second, Ramanujam is texting. Anubhava should always be more authoritative than scriptures, right? This is except for actually. Why don't we consider this because this is an important question. And finally, it has to be Anubhava only, right? When moksha comes, somebody when he is dying and going towards Vaikuntha or something, does he look at textbooks or something? He doesn't. Obviously, Anubhava should be the last testimony. But is Anubhava final? In the sense that some of the Anubhavas of people, they don't have the completion in perfection in the Anubhava. Suppose the Anubhava is not perfect, it is incorrect or based on limited knowledge. What happens then? See, this is where the problem is. It's a very complicated question. But Anubhava, so somebody would say, Anubhava is final. Let us assume Anubhava is final. Somebody says that I have not seen God. I'm 73 years old, 44 years old, but it doesn't matter. I never saw God. So God doesn't exist. So what kind of Anubhava are we talking about? Suppose I say, look, somebody said you go and meditate alone for 5 hours a day, and then within some time you will see God. Within a few years you will see God. They told me. I went and meditated for 10 years, 5 hours a day. I never saw anything other than dark room, darkness. So what should I say? God does not exist. So is this final? So it is very complicated question as is Anubhava the finest authority or the final authority? If so, do you have the final Anubhava or the most perfect Anubhava? Then the problem again is complicated. You know the answer to it, right? This is a complicated. This is not easy. Any other question?
Krishna ji, on the statement of Anubhava, so if an individual has an experience and the same experience is for several other individuals who are at a particular level and they are pretty similar, then we can probably consider that Anubhava as something that is relatively more true than just one individual, right? So maybe we are talking about that level of Anubhava, not as an individualistic level, more like a societal level of people or beings at a particular level.
This is the basis of all scientific measurements, right? This is the basic for all scientific measurement, and that is correct. Yeah, that is true.
So maybe they are talking about that type of experience, I suppose.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. See, the thing is,
even Patanjali. Sorry, go ahead.
Sudarshan ji, you have to understand. I think I don't know whether you are following the classes. I didn't see you for a long time. I think I suddenly knew what Sudarshan, which Sudarshan is talking. Now I remember. You are the one from Canada or something, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So, see, just to, that you look at other where we are in our classes, right? We are finished Śaṅkarācārya and Kena Upaniṣad, and we are taken up. Before taking Ramanuja work, we were taking the special book written by my grandfather Sataṅgar, who takes it in a slightly different way, somewhat consistent with Vishradvaita, but he has very special views. So that's what we are discussing right.
Awesome. Thank you.
As you know, we are not trying to tell anybody that follow this only, follow that only. We are not saying that. We are just studying different views on the Upanishad. Do you understand? So we are not reconciling also. There is no reconciliation. There is maramari, direct attacks between these systems. But we know what. So just like how you go and check out what is happening in a court room. Somebody is saying that he is right. Somebody is arguing he is wrong. So we are looking at all possibilities here. I want this to be clear. Just not only to you, Sudarshan, but everybody.
Thank you. But for me, I'm at a level where, I need to have certain level of knowledge to even reconcile. So I'm on acquiring stage right now. So I have no issues acquiring more knowledge.
Exactly. So we are still acquiring more knowledge, and I am enjoying the ride. By the way, I thank every one of you to have given me the opportunity to sit down and study and discuss these things. This is giving me immense joy to understand more things, actually. Helping me for sure.
One more thing. According to Gita, that Raja Vidya, Krishna clearly says that pratyaksha. So there, I think he is pointing that pratyaksha should be the final authority.
See, he is not stating it as final there. He says pratyakshanu, I'm sorry, pratyaksha-avagamam dharmyam susukam kartum avyayam. Pratyaksha-avagamam means this is not just textbook information, not like a story in a textbook. You can experience this. Pratyaksha-avagamam dharmyam, and this is not against dharma. It is dharma dhanapetam. That means it is totally dharmic. Susukham, easy to do. Kartum avyayam, and this is the science of Raja Yoga, which people can engage in Raja Yoga. So that one is not. He doesn't say anything about final. He says that this philosophy is not textbook philosophy. It is real, experienceable.
Correct. So pratyaksha is the final, right, over there? Pratyaksha. Finally, it leads to pratyaksha.
See, he doesn't mention final. He says that you can directly experience one day. Pratyaksha avagamam. Yad avagamyate pratyakshena. Like that, right? You have to say what can be understood through pratyaksha. So it is not the ordinary pratyaksha he's talking about. It is not the ordinary like an external perception of objects. It is perception of realization. One day you will be able to realize all these things. That is the idea then. Well, with this,
Is it like what you realize when you're in Samadhi? Is that what they are
yes,
talking about? That?
exactly.
And so, but even in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, they are talking about multiple different Samadhis. Like there are like Sabhija Samadhi, Nirbhija Samadhi. They're like, then there is going to be so many different understandings even when you're in Samadhi.
Definitely, this is not easy. This is just the trailer. The movie is still bugging.
This is about that Nirvikalpa and Savikalpa Samadhi, right?
Yes, that is
There are
only
different
one
types
part
of
of it. Yeah. So by the way, Patanjali Yoga Sutras has become my favorite now. The reason is, finally, I'm able to dig out my grandfather's manuscript on Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So I'm trying to rewrite it, understand and I would like to, somewhere compile his book and print it out as his book. And I try to make my own notes and make it bigger and things like that. So I'm working on that. One Patanjali Yoga Sutra had given up, or I never studied it verse by verse, sutra by sutra. So I'm working on it. It's very interesting.
Just one question. From the Advaita perspective, there is one book, Moola Vidya Nirasa. But then but there are many people who don't agree with Sachidanandra Saraswati Swamiji about on this particular perspective, Moola Vidya Nirasa.
Yeah. See, Moola Vidya Nirasa, it is work of Sachidananda Swami. I have the book and I was studying that book a little bit, not completely. Apparently, the person had worked very hard. He invited so many Advaita scholars to come and evaluate, correct, critique, argue about it. I don't know whether everybody turned up, but apparently today, if you look at it, most of the mainstream Advaitins, even my close friend V. Subramanian ji, he also thinks that he is an extremist. Moola Vidya is not acceptable. That Moola Vidya Nirasa is not acceptable to most mainstream Sringeri kind of Advaitins. So we don't agree with it. Simply, right? And I don't know. That's a separate discussion. But we'll figure out someday.
But the Swamiji has also written a lot about even Śaṅkarācārya's origins, and also some of the writings of Śaṅkarācārya, whether it is from Śaṅkarācārya or not. So he has done a lot of research.
He's a thorough researcher, no question about it. By the way, I owe I have to do namaskaram to Sachidananda Swami for sure. You know why? It is his book I use all the time. Whether it is Gita, Kena Upaniṣad, or anything, I use his book because it's easy to follow for me. And you know what my friend V. Subramanian says? That Krishna is one of the greatest scholars. You can directly read Shankar Bhashya from Sachidananda Swami, but don't read the footnotes. He gives footnotes, and many of these footnotes are his own ideas, so don't take them seriously. So that's what he says.
And he has also written one book on Ramanuja.org's part as well.
No, yeah, I know. Don't worry. I understand all those things. That is a separate conversation. Any other question on today's lecture? Everything okay so far? Do you understand where we are going?
Yes.
Okay. Then we'll stop here. Tomorrow we'll continue with this. So it's interesting that we have 2 days together, right? So the same thought will continue further as how Sataṅgar takes this to the next level, right? So what we're going to do is, in short, our journey is this. So Sataṅgar idea is to clearly establish the idea of Gita and Ishavasya Upanishad prior to continuing the Kena Upaniṣad. We already finished Kena Upaniṣad section 1, that is Khanda 1. We are doing section 2 in Kena Upaniṣad, according to Sataṅgar. But he stops here and says, unless you go back and understand this fundamentals of Gita, that too in the yogic way, what is upasana, what is ahangaropahasana, what is in the Isha, you need to understand about sambhuti, asambhuti, vidya, avidya, and all. Unless you understand this, the portion given in the Kena Upaniṣad is not clear. So I did not know this kind of interdependency of studies and step-by-step understanding of different Upanishads. And my grandfather is hell-bent on stressing that every strand of the Ishavasya Upanishad is somehow connected to the strands of Kena, Kata, Mundaka, and so on. So you should not skip and learn Kena, Kata first and then come back to this. Many people do it. He is the only unique guy I have seen. Even among Sri Vaishnavas, people who are studying Upanishads, I've seen Narasimhanji and so many other people. They don't go from Isha, Kena, Kata, Munda in the same order. They pick up some other Upanishad and talk about it. But my grandfather does not like it. He says that the whole meaning will become upside down, confused, and it becomes a spaghetti code and you cannot understand what it is. So you need to have connectivity. That's his specialty. Okay, with this we'll stop. Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha, Shri Krishna Parabrahmane Namaha, Shri Lakshmi Narasimha Parabrahmane Namaha, Sarvam Shri Krishna Namaste. We'll join again tomorrow. Okay, thank you.
Namaskaram.
Namaskaram.